Hey everybody, I'm Vinny Hogan with Hawks Landing Productions. I'm the writer director of The Distant Jump. And today I've got writer, director, producer, VFX artist, AI enthusiast, and forward thinking filmmaker Christopher Cooksey, also known as Christopher Moonlight Productions. How are you doing today?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for having me on the show. It's nice to be here. I was actually under the weather for quite some time, and today is the first day that I'm really feeling good. So glad to be
Nice.
here. Thank you for having me.
Good, good. Well, hopefully this podcast is like a spiritual chicken noodle soup for you. So, um, so let's jump into it. I'd love to ask you basically three questions, kind of encapsulating a 30,000 foot view of your past, your present, and your future. I've been really following a lot of your technical work because you have such a rich history in practical effects, and you've also really embraced artificial intelligence and digital effects. So, why don't we start real quick with a film you released in 2022, Quantum Terror. So, tell me, how did this come about? Where were you in your filmmaking journey when this project came to be?
This was a decades in the making movie. I even when I was a little kid, I loved comic books. I loved movies. I knew I wanted to be involved somehow. I actually was faced with a lot of discouragement, which was odd because I've lived about 40 minutes away from Hollywood, and I thought to myself, well, other people are doing this. Why can't I? And I would spend a lot of my childhood exploring, back hills. There were wash tunnels that would go underground that were, they were barred off, but to a skinny little kid, you could squeeze through those bars and go exploring, and your imagination would go wild. I was very much a fan of 80s science fiction and fantasy. So there was a lot of that bubbling around in my head from Star Wars, Star Trek, especially the Alien franchise, or the first two Alien movies, which to me, the franchise stops there. But the idea of just underground tunnels was very interesting to me. And I spent a lot of time doing work for other people's projects in my 20s and 30s. Puppet work. I was showing in art galleries. I was trying to do underground comics that had kind of a goth twist on them called the Black Lipstick Curse. I was doing all sorts of stuff. Met my wife. We had a couple of kids. And long story short, I was really, even back in the early 2000s, quite sick of Hollywood, quite sick of their attitude. It was becoming a very can't do attitude unless you're willing to essentially sell out to the Hollywood system. And that's putting it very simply. There's a lot more to that. I won't get into that now, but again, that can't do attitude was just not doing it for me. And it was very expensive to live in California. We had two kids. We were crammed in a little apartment. And so we spent every last penny we had to get out to Texas. And once I got there, a special effects studio that is rather famous called Studio ADI, who has done practical effects work on everything from the Alien franchise, starting with Alien 3, Tremors, Starship Troopers, the Santa Claus, Jumanji, just, I mean, they're no slouches. I had worked not too far from their studio, and I would drop by and visit every once in a while. And as soon as I came out to Texas, they had announced that they were starting a crowdfunding campaign for a movie called Harbinger Down. Harbinger Down was their passion project because even people in the industry, they've got to work and do what the producers want, but they have their own ideas. And they had done practical effects work on a prequel to The Thing, which all got painted over by CGI. And it was not to the benefit of the people doing the CGI. Their work was rushed, and so it didn't look good. They decided, well, we want to do kind of, because Alec had worked for Roger Corman and for those who are not familiar with Roger Corman, he was a film producer from the 50s all the way up into the 2000s. I think he died at 99 years old. Anyway, Harbinger Down they wanted to do a low budget kind of homage to Roger Corman's kind of knockoff style of filmmaking, where they would do things on a budget but do what the fans wanted to see, which were the practical effects. Their fans are practical effects enthusiasts, and so am I to this day. And their crowdfunder wasn't being seen. They didn't know anything about doing crowdfunding. They just launched it. And again, I had spent all my money coming out to Texas, but I wanted to be a part of it. So I said to them, like, look, you guys, I don't have any money to contribute to your crowdfunder, but what I can donate is my time. Let me help you get the word out about this. We'll start kind of, radio stations have street teams where they like hand out stickers and flyers and give people t-shirts to get the hype going. I've got all these fans together. We created an online street team. I got them interviews with people like Comic Book Girl 19 and I got all these other special effects artists to retweet or repost their stuff. Anyway, it worked. They got funded. The movie got made, and then I'm watching all of this, and I'm noticing that the rental that we're by, there's an underground tunnel like I used to play in as a little kid, and I was like, well, I'm watching them make things for their movie out of like bubble wrap and trash bags and like discarded materials, and they're lighting it and they're painting it so it looks really cool, even though it's just kind of essentially household materials. I can do this too. And so I set to work on writing a story that kind of fed into all the things that I was interested in terms of creature effects, and also my love of, I'm a big reader. I love psychology. I love H.P. Lovecraft, like these weird tales, filmmakers like David Lynch. So I thought, I'll make a movie that's kind of my experimental film, where I try out all these different things that all these other filmmakers I love have done. Try putting them together, kind of in the same way that like a little kid tries on their dad's boots and walks around in them, they're too big. So I wrote in scenes that were like, oh, this is something that Sam Raimi might do. This is something that, James Cameron would do, or Ridley Scott would do, or I really love the film Silence of the Lambs. I was very interested in the kind of camera work that was being done in that movie. So I wanted to kind of experiment with that, knowing full well that I was under a lot of limitations. Anyway, I wrote the script. I started doing experiments, and Alec Gillis, who is the director of Harbinger Down, one of the co-founders of Studio ADI, along with his partner at the time, Tom Woodruff Jr., they said, hey, we've got some tentacle mechanisms left over from the movie. We would, as a thank you, we'll send them to you. You can use them in your movie. So I actually got ADI, this Oscar-winning special effects studio, to contribute effects to my movie. Anyway, I got some local talent together in terms of actors and a director of photography. And Jenna Green, who was on the sci-fi show, makeup challenge show called Face Off, I had made friends with her out here. She's local, and so she helped me with the makeup effects and that sort of thing. My friend Heather loves to build doll houses, so she helped me by building all the miniatures of the tunnels. I gave her directions. So there's a lot of miniatures in this movie. So it's like, and again, that Silence of the Lambs style filmmaking, where you're seeing what's going on from the point of view of the character. Using that really helps, because you could have a character look in a direction, and then you cut away to a miniature, and you've got a puppet in there that's supposed to be giant, but it's really just a little puppet in a miniature tunnel. But because you've got that POV style of camera work, the audience never questions it. So I actually got a lot of comments saying like, wow, where did you shoot that? Where did you find all those tunnels? And the truth is that there was one tunnel. It was built in my garage, and we shot it the same way that the old Star Trek film sets would shoot the Enterprise. They had one hallway, but they keep shooting it from different angles. and have them walk down one way and then come back another way, and they cut it all together so it looked like they were just walking through continuous tunnels. So it was a lot of that low budget, camera tricks, turning the camera upside down, forced perspective where you've got a small object in front of the camera to make it look larger with, the actors in the middle ground to make them look smaller, and then, something behind them that, is either dark or whatever, So we had a really great time making it, and I'll never forget I did a showing of it it was at a Halloween haunt. A friend of mine has a Halloween haunt, so he gathered a bunch of people together to do a screening of it there. And a few of the actors showed up, and they hadn't seen it, and this was their first time. And afterward, they're just like, wow, it's like, that was all in your garage, but like I was watching the movie and I forgot because it looks like a network of underground tunnels. And so yeah, it did pretty well actually. I wouldn't say it was profitable. We raised some money through Indiegogo, and I met my producing partner at the time. He threw in some money for it, Doug Mayfield, and he's producing partner with me now. I even sold a car, one of my cars, and some tax return money. We just cobbled together about $15,000 and spent it mostly on sets and materials, some camera equipment, and then the rest went to paying the actors, who were wonderful and who trusted me. Like, again, I'm a guy, I'm just like, hey, come be in my movie. And they show up and it's like, come in my garage. We're just going to shoot in the garage all day, And they had a really good time, though. And the validation was I got a review from Film Threat. And when you get a review for your movie from someplace like Film Threat, your first inclination is just, you close your eyes, you're like, oh my God, okay, brace for impact. And then I read it, and they gave it a 9.5 out of 10. And the reviewer just heaped all sorts of praise on about the acting, about the miniatures, about everything, and said that they watched it twice and they planned to watch it a third time. And then from there, it got nominated for Film Threat's award, which is called Award This. And I was up against Terrifier 2. So I thought, well, it's nice to be nominated, but obviously Terrifier 2 is going to win. And then I won. We won. Our movie won. And from there, like I said, it's on video on demand. It's on Tubi and Apple TV and Amazon and a bunch of stuff. It's like I said, it's not raking in money or anything, but for first outing, it did a lot better than I ever dreamed. I just thought I was going to make this movie, maybe get a few DVDs printed for the Indiegogo contributors, send it to them, do a screening here or there, and that would be it. But what is it, like 3 years later, 4 years later, it's still, it's still out there. People are talking about it. They're not talking about it like they're talking about Terrifier. So, I guess they didn't meet that award this, but it's still really nice, having that validation from Film Threat, having people like Studio ADI believe in me enough to trust that they could send me effects, having, these wonderful actors come in and completely trust me, as I have styrofoam walls painted to look like concrete behind them. And yeah, it was a great experience. And I'm still, people always say you'll hate your first movie. I don't hate it at all. I'm very proud of how it turned out. So.
Well, congratulations. It sounds like a really incredible journey. And it really sounds like you left Hollywood because you got sick of a can't do attitude. And then you came here to Austin and you put your can do attitude literally on the screen. So congrats on reaching this day,
Thank you. Well, it's, and when I say can't do attitude, it's really everybody, when you have an idea in Hollywood and it's worth anything, everybody wants to step in and put their hand on the steering wheel. They've got their hand out. They want to find some way to get something out of it for themselves. And that is what is inflating the cost of making films in Hollywood. And I saw even back then the writing on the wall is this is untenable. Eventually, this will come to an end because movies are the industry is pricing itself out of being competitive by making the filmmaking process so expensive that it can't make its money back, especially if the quality of the writing and the directing, even though the quality of the picture is better, digital cameras, very high-end VFX, all that's improved. But in my opinion, the writing and the quality of the directing and a lot of other aspects has declined. And so audiences are staying away in droves. So they, if you're gonna ask an audience to show up, you've got to really show them something good, and it's got to be, of course, financially tenable to do it because movie making is expensive, obviously. So anyway.
Absolutely. And following that theme, let's talk a little bit more about where you are now and how not only you see the film industry evolving and the art of filmmaking, but also how you're getting out there and getting your hands dirty, so to speak. So, one of the reasons I wanted to have you on this podcast is I follow you online, and I saw you made this kit bashed robot out of toilet paper and a plastic egg, a print
Yeah.
cartridge. So anyway, so have been obsessed with it and just finished a film called The Distant Jump, where, like you, the key set piece was in our garage, foam painted black, and industrial things like boxes of cheese painted black and put by the hundreds, and the eye just computes it as other things. So one of the things I am excited to hear you talk about is this little guy here who, like I mentioned, was built by hand, but then you mentioned it was edited in Grok.
Grok, which is
Okay.
one of the AI models that's out there that's available to consumers.
I said Grok, or I said Grok instead of Grok. How do you pronounce the
Grok. So Grok
Yeah.
is actually, if you read Robert Heinlein's "Stranger in a Strange Land," Grok is the Martian word for comprehend. It was written in the '60s, so it's kind of like almost like a hip term, like, hey, do you grok what I mean? Do you grok me? That sort of thing. So great book, by the way. Very interesting. But yes, it's Grok. So yeah, where do I start with this guy? I made him years ago, and I was originally going to animate him as a rod puppet against green screen for a short film that I had made that never came to be. I had shot it, but circumstances made it so I couldn't complete it. Called Girl in the Window, which was, I think, conceptualized around 2011. I'd gone to Comic-Con and Robert Rodriguez was there, and he was talking about rebooting heavy metal. And he had some sort of contest, like, send in your ideas and the winner will produce your movie. But then I read the contract, and it was essentially like, it was like an IP gathering exercise where if you agreed to send your idea, he owned it, whether you were the winner or not. And I was like, I might have misread the contract, but that's what it appeared to be to me. So I thought, well, I would love to do a Robert Rodriguez style kind of, like El Mariachi meets Star Wars short film where it's just a guy, going after rescuing a babe, like a purple-skinned alien girl. and he has to blast his way through different alien henchmen and robots and that sort of thing. So I built that robot, and I'm glad you like him because I'm quite fond of him too. And I'm actually, so here he's got no arms or legs at the moment. I'm refurbishing this guy at the moment. But you're right, he's a toilet paper tube, a plastic like Easter egg, and an ink cartridge. And then I'll also show you another one that I'm also refurbishing. He also has no arms and legs. And this is I think this is a, what is it? Pedialyte, yeah. Because I had a baby at the time. A Pedialyte container, and the front is a broken apart computer mouse. And then this little cage thing underneath there, I think was from like a pirate ship toy that had broken off. It was like the crow's nest. So I glued it all together and I painted it all to look rusty. And originally it was going to be for that, but I love them so much, I want them to be in my upcoming movie, which is called Escape from Planet Omega 12. It's a throwback to a lot of the 1950s, 1960s Technicolor sci-fi that I love so much. Things like Forbidden Planet, Robinson Crusoe on Mars, Green Slime. What else is there? There are a lot of different ones. Barbarella, although honestly, I don't like Barbarella. I thought it was a terrible movie. I like the idea of what Barbarella was. And that's really kind of where the inspiration of that came from was, when I was a kid, video stores were new, and you would go in and all this video store box art would have this amazing artwork for these really low budget, terrible sci-fi movies that weren't nearly as cool as the box art suggested. So I thought to myself, well, I like a lot of these. Even as a kid, I did watch and like a lot of those movies. There was a lot of the Roger Corman stuff like Battle Beyond the Stars, Galaxy of Terror. There was also the Barbarian Sword and Sorcery movies like the Warrior and the Sorceress. There's so many different ones. Yes, Battle Beyond the Stars. Love that movie. James Cameron did the effects for that as well. And of course, James Cameron, very much at that time an innovator. Him and Stan Winston, and again, my former boss, Alec Gillis, that did Harbinger Down, he got his start at Roger Corman, and he actually got James Cameron the job. They were friends at the time.
No kidding.
Yeah. So, and when I went to visit Alec, and the ships from Battle Beyond the Stars were in his shop. James Cameron had hired him to restore them. So, that was a real treat. And essentially, I thought, again, the box art had these very beautiful, scantily clad women on them, and muscly guys with ray guns or swords. And I was like, I want to make a movie that is that. That is, like, if I were to look at the box art and then rent the movie, and the movie was actually what it was promised, I want to make that movie. So Escape from Planet Omega 12 is my, again, homage to the 50s and 60s sci-fi, and also kind of merged with a little bit of that 70s grindhouse, sex and violence, to create something that's kind of edgy and risque and still a lot of fun for the audience. We have Tara here, and that's a sketch out of my sketchbook. She's the wife of the starship captain who's discovered this planet Omega 12, which is a primitive planet. It's teeming with all sorts of life, but it is devoid of civilization. But there is an incident on the ship where the entire crew is murdered, including her husband. But she manages to escape into an escape pod, kind of a la R2-D2-C3PO. She's even got a little floating robot with her named Blip that's kind of like an assistant robot. and she drags the body of her husband into the escape pod. He's got this knife sticking out of his chest. I won't go into the circumstances of what happened to the crew, but she barely escapes with her life. And because they were actually, she's not a member of the crew. She's just the wife. They were trying to conceive a baby. So she was just hanging out in their quarters in her underwear when this happened. And so when she escapes down to the planet and is marooned, she doesn't have any clothes. She's got her husband's belt and a few of his weapons. And these are some of the tests for it. And we can go through a little bit of what's going on with those tests too, if you want. But she's marooned. She's got a little floating robot to help her, and then this gelatinous creature comes along and essentially absorbs the body of her husband. And something weird starts happening. You can see this gelatinous form starts to turn into this humanoid figure, and it's giant. It's like 15 feet tall. And inside of this humanoid figure is the absorbed remains of her husband with a knife sticking out. It's basically just a skeleton at this point with a knife sticking out. But it starts taking on her husband's personality, his thoughts, his feelings, his memories. And so it is very dedicated to protecting her. So again, she's got no training. She doesn't know how to use weapons properly. She no survival skills. So essentially the story is about this gelatinous creature and this woman who have to survive together on this planet. Meanwhile, his spaceship is perpetually orbiting the planet. So they've got to try and figure out a way to get back to this spaceship. But meanwhile, what was responsible for the murder of the crew is stalking her. In addition to that, there are hostile alien creatures that, it's like a planet of alien dinosaurs. They're, everything's trying to eat her. But anyway, this mysterious entity or whatever it is that tried to kill her and successfully killed the crew is sending drones, robots, assassins after her. So she's also constantly on the run. And it's kind of meant to be episodic. Even the movie is kind of broken up into 4 episodes. If it does well, then I would also like to continue on with other movies. The first movie will not end up, it will end up with closure, but it will not end with her escaping. So there's more adventures to be had on that planet. And it was inspired by all the things I told you, and also have a deep love of an old animated show called Samurai Jack, where, for those who aren't familiar, Jack nearly defeated a demon that was taking over the world in feudal Japan, but at the last minute, the demon tricks him and sends him far into the future where the demon rules. So it's kind of this Star Wars world. And Samurai Jack is trying to get back to his past so he can undo what has been done by this demon. And so each episode kind of centered around him trying to get back to the past, but he would always kind of be in a new location and meet new people and have an episodic adventure, with that quest to get back to the past being what drove each episode, even if it wasn't tied completely into what that story was at the time. So, that the idea of trying to escape a planet Omega 12 drives all these other adventures that you would have on the planet. There you go. Love that show. I highly recommend. And there's another show by the same creator. His name is Genndy Tartakovsky, called Primal, that is on Adult Swim on Cartoon Network right now, which is also excellent. But Samurai Jack to me is unparalleled. It's beautiful. And yes, Genndy Tartakovsky's done a lot of stuff. He's done Star Wars stuff, Primal, Hotel Transylvania. Really big influence on my work. He's a brilliant visual storyteller. And what he does really is fed into my philosophy of storytelling, which is it's about the medium you're working in. Genndy Tartakovsky loves hand-drawn animation, and every story he tells is written so that he can flex his animation skills. And for me, the way that I'm making Escape from Planet Omega 12 is so I can kind of flex my own skills, which are Escape from Planet Omega 12 is going to be a blend of practical effects miniatures and puppets, like the robots, as well as AI generated characters like Tara. So, I'm trying to create a hybrid because AI animation is in its infancy and everyone's experimenting with it. We don't yet know exactly as a medium how it's going to pan out. But what I'm interested in is how can I use it to tell my stories, have it do the heavy lifting, both financially and storytelling wise, that I couldn't do on my own before, but also allow me to still bring in what I've always loved doing, which is the practical effects miniatures and and I'm built like creatures for it. Let me show you this. Hold on a second. I can pull this out. Here's one of our creatures. It's an giant alien worm. I sculpted this, and just like the robots, what I do is I take pictures of it. It's kind of glared out. I apologize for that, but I'll take pictures of it, and then I'll either create a puppet and puppeteer it, or in the instance of this creature here, which is a work in progress, he's not done yet. This is an alien rat. That I'm building, and that's going to be done in stop motion. The stop motion takes a long time, but what I can do is I can use AI to cut down the amount of frames I need to shoot. Instead of shooting 24 frames a second, I can shoot 2 or 3 frames a second, and AI will bridge that gap for me and speed up the process. So I've still got practical words, but AI has allowed me to, again, bypass the exorbitant cost of doing stuff like this. So I'm not beholden to a bunch of investors or producers who want to change the vision, who want to, inflate the cost. That is all gone. And I can stay creatively free. That's really, again, that was what coming out to Texas was about being creatively free. So I'm very happy with what AI has allowed me to do. And again, that idea of pushing the medium, I'm excited to discover AI as a new medium. Not just as, people think like, oh, it's just being lazy. It's like, no, it's anyone who uses AI regularly will know that there's a lot of work that goes into making it work properly, and pushing the boundaries of what AI does. That's a wonderful act of discovery. I'm very pleased with being able to be a pioneer to test the limits of what AI can do, and also see if I can discover things that the people who created AI didn't even think of. So, yeah, it's very exciting for me.
Yeah, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. Yeah. Well, Christopher, thanks for being on today. I would love to have you back for 2 things come to mind. One is I'd love to do a deeper dive at a later date as I'm exploring your Substack here. You have green screen footage, clearly some animation going on, and then some end results through this presumably AI influenced animation.
This is a big topic, and we're just scratching the surface of it. But I can come back if you want.
Okay, if you don't mind, that'd be fantastic because I've been looking for some way to simultaneously embrace AI, but at the same time help guide not just AI, but our society and our industry in a way that still has an anchor attached to human creativity. And I
Yeah.
see that's exactly what you're doing. So I'd love
Sorry.
to have you back on sometime in the future to discuss exactly kind of how you do that. And then also I'd love to do a deeper dive on Roger Corman, because I'm also very inspired by his. At some point, I'm going to really geek out and just talk about Roger Corman 54 to 61, like 1954 to 61, when he was shooting hour-long movies in 5 days, with none of the technical conveniences we have.
I've never met Roger Corman, but I did enter 2 contests that he did. One was a tagline contest for his movie Sharktopus versus Terracuda, which I thought I should have won, but the tagline was the P may be silent, but they're both deadly. And he went with a love story, which, okay, I thought mine was better. And then I entered his, during lockdowns, he did a lockdown short film contest where I made a 2-minute short film. Again, didn't place, didn't win, but I was very proud of that short film as well. But anyway, yeah, I'd be happy to talk about that. I'd be happy to kind of deep dive into more of the philosophy of AI. You should check out some of my film threat articles, because I think, I might come off as a little harsh on some of them. Again, I'm very defiant.
Sure.
So, but I've written a lot about it, and Chris Gore actually suggested that I take these articles and re-edit them into a book. So I might be doing that. I'll also be talking about, I'm going to be, there is in San Antonio in March, there is an organization called Outside the Canvas who's invited me to talk about AI in San Antonio. So I'm excited about that, but I always enjoy these talks. I'm happy to talk again another time about this stuff, do a deep dive.
Is it Beyond the Canvas?
Beyond the Canvas. That was
okay.
Beyond the Canvas.
There we go.
So that's their organization. So yeah, I just got confirmed to be talking about AI in March. I can't remember the exact March date, but yeah. Again, it's nice to be on the kind of the bleeding edge of this and see where it's going to go. But ultimately, my thought is this: everyone's focused on how AI can go horribly wrong, and it's like, yeah, putting a car into neutral and letting it go down a hill can go horribly wrong as well. But if you get behind the wheel of that car and take control of it, you can go all sorts of wonderful places. So it really depends on our attitude towards how we're going to guide this tool. Because, if you're worried about AI, whether it's creative or not creative, you're missing the point. Of course it's not creative. It just does whatever you type. But you put it in the hands of someone with a great imagination, and they can type some wonderful stuff, you're going to get some really cool stuff. It is a morally neutral technology. Whatever morality or danger comes from it is coming from the human being using it. And so, you don't want to be the human being not using it and have some people who want to use it for terrible things be the only ones using it. So I feel like, yeah, I want to take the wheel and see where I can drive this thing.
Well, that's fantastic, man. Thank you again for speaking with me today, and everyone check out Quantum Terror on Tubi and other streaming services. This is Christopher Moonlight Productions. You can also find him on Facebook and his Substack. And how often would you say you write on Film Threat?
Film Threat, I took a little bit of a break for the holidays, but I'll be back soon. But it's usually a weekly article on Film Threat. And my Substack, if you subscribe to that, I post pretty regularly on there about Escape from Planet Omega 12 and other stuff. It's a free subscription, so please sign up. My paid supporters get early access to stuff, including my Film Threat articles. But you don't have to be a paid supporter to get the content. You just have to just have to log on. You don't even have to subscribe, but it helped me if you subscribe. So please do. Because I feel like I'm doing some fun stuff there. And you'll also be the first to hear about things like when Escape from Planet Omega 12 hits movie theaters, because that's actually a thing that we'll be doing as well.
Well, awesome. Well, thanks for checking out Hawks Landing Productions, everybody. And again, this is Vinny Hogan. Please like, subscribe, share, comment, all the good stuff. And thank you, Christopher Cooksey. See you next time.
You're welcome. See ya.